Hello and welcome back to the channel where we are building a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. So tonight is one of those nights where I have been freelancing and worked a full day and then did some freelancing, and I only have time now and I've got work early in the morning, so I cannot do a lot today. All that being said, we're going to try to get the ability to talk to the NPC up here. So you can see our little red collider box isn't reaching the guy up there. So we maybe want to find a way to kind of like disjoint the hitbox for a player or for an entity so that we can interact with them even if we're not directly colliding with our hitbox over here. Or I mean, a case like this is kind of unique, right? Like there aren't going to be many behind the counter NPCs like this guy just runs the shop or whatever. So maybe what we do is say like maybe Tashio's hitbox detector, when inside a room of type shopkeep or something, has a higher, you know, a higher displacement so that it can reach further. Let's try to wrap our heads around how we're doing this and see what the process is. So we are listening for key presses in the play state, right? And no, sorry, Bob Twitch. Today I didn't wait for the ads to stop. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear it. Let's just try to walk through what we're doing for this. So, you know, we're listening for a key press. If P is pressed, we're cycling through all the dialog box field. So in our global map, we have a whole table of dialog box objects. And we can look at what that looks like right here. We have this, you know, insert into dialog box. With the dialog box instantiation, it takes an X and a Y as well as a text parameter for what to type in the dialog box. So if we look into this, the X and Y here is kind of interesting because I can't figure out where we're using it. So like if we go for a .x, it has to be a escape.x here. We're not using the X position anywhere for the dialog box here. So this doesn't really help us any. If we look at, you know, all we do is if we're paused, we're going to go ahead and render whatever we call it, line 1 result, line 2 result, line 3 result, text advance. I don't know if we're doing a text advance anymore. Yeah, let's just get rid of that. So I'm not sure these X and Y positions do much of anything. Which we should really ensure that these are doing something, because it's a required parameter. So if we're not using it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think we do use them just outside of this class. So I think once we press P, let's see, let's walk it through. You know, we're gonna cycle through all of our dialog box objects. Then we're gonna run a dialog collides method on our player for each of those dialog box objects. So let's see what that dialog collides method looks like. It would be in our player class, I'm assuming, called Dialogue Collides. No? Okay, this is... Okay, so the dialogue box X and Y, it's not really the dialogue box, it's the little red circle. It's the little red circle that we're using to check collision for other NPCs. What's up, K-Tronics? How's it going, dude? Yeah, it's a late night stream. I had some video editing I had to get done, and I finished late, so here I am. Yeah, so I don't like the wording here, dialogue box X. We can maybe call it dialogue hitbox or for, I don't know. But basically the dialogue collides must be part of the entity here. Yeah. Okay, so once we run the dialogue collides on an entity, it takes that entity's dialogue box X. So that's the hitbox detection, right? It's where that red square is being rendered on our Tashio player. So it's taking that box's X and Y position, comparing it to the target X, Y position for some AABB collision. So as long as we pass it the target, it's just some AABB collision with the self box parameters from our entity class. So that's why we're rendering those parameters here so that we can have an idea of what collision we're actually testing. Because when we run the dialogue collides, it runs, this is the entity, so it takes its dialogue box X, and then we're running it on a dialogue box at index K. So whichever dialogue box we actually collided with, well, actually, it runs through each one of them. We cycle through all of the dialogue boxes. We check collision on every single one of them. If we do end up colliding, that's when we flush the line results, reset our line count text index, save our dialogue ID, and then we're gonna table.insert into signpost collided table the actual dialogue box that we collided with. So I don't like that it's still called signpost collided. It works for signposts, but also for other dialogues. So we have to kind of see what the signpost collided actually does. If we're paused, we're going to update the dialog box with the given dialog ID. That makes sense. We're going to move, this one is just moving our dialog box for the NPC. If we give it, if the dialog box has the option of NPC passed in as a string. So I think we're looking for anything where we do the signpost collided to try and see where we use that. And it looks like we only use it in the scene. We use it in the scene, and it's really just render the dialog box that was collided with. So instead of signpost collided, we should probably call it dialog collided or something other than signpost collided, because that's getting confusing. Dialog box collided. And that's just a table that should hold only the dialog box that was collided once we press P, and our entity's hitbox collided with an NPC's dialog box. That's when it gets moved into the dialog box collided. So if the dialog box right here, we're basically saying for all of the dialog boxes that were collided, which there should only be the one at any given time, we're going to go ahead and render it. So I think that's where it comes in, where we're saying, where we flush this to empty, because we have to remove the dialog box that was collided in order to flush it out. So if we're not paused, meaning if the game is updating, flush out the dialog box collided because we're not paused, and that means we haven't activated a dialog box, because dialog box only gets activated once we become paused once we activate a dialog box. So and actually this is kind of interesting, because this is all in the if P is pressed. So if P is pressed, I'm trying to think this through, because once, like, for example, if we're on the last page of a dialog box, P gets pressed, right? Like to exit the paused at the end when you're trying to advance back into the updating play state, P is going to be pressed. And at that point, how do we become unpressed? Where do we become paused gets false? We do it here in our dialog box update. So by the time we update our dialog box, which is where? Not down here, not until here. Yeah, we don't update it till here. Okay, so I'm a little confused. I'm assuming if we take this out, it would still work as normal, because I think my logic was wrong. Well, we fucked up. We took out. We have to change all of this signpost collided to dialog box collided. So I'm just going to highlight, substitute any dialog. It's actually signpost collided with dialog box collided. Okay. And then I think we have one more place, maybe in our scene where we're doing it. It's in our map declarations. We need to give ourselves a dialog box collided table. Okay, now we shouldn't crash, and now we should be able to check page 1, page 2, and then look, if we reset it, okay, it is working even without that flush. Okay, I think this works. I think we don't have to flush the dialog box. Well, why wouldn't we have to? I think we don't have to flush it because, well, we insert it. If we collide, we become paused. Now, in the dialog box, it's already in that table of dialog box collided. Whatever the dialog box object is in that table. So why wouldn't we have to remove it like we were? Oh, we uncommented it out because we were crashing. Okay, so let's test it. Let's take it out and we'll test it if it works when we comment it out. I'm assuming it doesn't reset the words or something, but it looks like it's working fine. Now I'm a little worried about what's happening under the hood there, because I think since we're not ever removing the dialog box, we're only ever inserting more and more dialog box objects into that dialog box collided table anytime we hit P on it, unless we have another dialog box collided statement that is flushing it. I don't see it. Yeah, what we really want to do is once we become unpaused, we just want to flush all of the dialog box collided. Yeah. So whenever we do the P released, you know, like after you hold it for a movie, once P is released, if P is pressed and we have already released P, then, man, all this P talk, and then I've got a flush method here. This is where, yeah, once we become false, this is where we want to take out the dialog box collided at the current map. So if this is our dialog box, we want to come into this dialog box collided table and just delete it. I think something like this, where we would say, go ahead, take our current map row and map column and go into our dialog box collided field and assign it to be empty. We're going to remove the dialog box that we had collided with because we just advanced out of the dialog box option. We're no longer paused, so let's just delete the dialog box collided because we haven't collided with any. Now, we didn't need to do this. It was working, but under the hood, I think it was just adding a bunch of dialog box collided. Then I think it might have been accidentally rendering stuff on top of itself. So I feel better having that in there, even though it was working without it. I think that is better. I'm not about to go and test it, but it seems to be working still, so I think this is just a little bit more efficient. So we need to try to figure out either how to modify an NPC's hitbox via parameter or via something else, or modify our dialog box field for our entity. Because let's just test it here, where we go into our entity and we say dialog, our dialog collides takes in our X, Y, width, and height and does AABB collision against our target. So if we were to go into our entity, where are we doing this dialog box X? See, look, so we're setting, what are we doing here? We're setting our dialog box X to be equal to our own X, but that's not right. Because the red box is like in front of us. So where are we doing that part? The red hitbox is like right in front of us, so where is that offset being put in there? Because our dialog box X and Y, it's got to be in our player. Yeah, right here. Okay, so we're kind of, right now, what we're gonna try to do is just double the height of our dialog box height if our player's facing up, just to see if we can get the bigger box when we're facing up. And it does look bigger, but I don't think it's big enough to reach the barkeep in here. Yeah, it's not quite big enough. So it's that we need to maybe double the height, but also double the Y starting point, because the height only builds downwards in Love2d, so we have to increase the Y there. So now our box is reaching him, but we aren't getting the collision. So either we didn't insert a dialog box onto the entity. Let's check if we did. We should have This is the villager index. Yes, we have a dialog box inserted into the correct scene, onto the correct villager, given its X and Y position. And then we also gave that entity, oh, this shouldn't be 7.2, this should be 111. And then 3 was a factor. What did we end up doing? We ended up getting rid of that, so let's not do that. So now that we give the proper NPC as the parameter for the NPC to be updated, this is how we're updating the hitbox. Yes. Oh my gosh, that worked. So this, you know, he's not a mage, obviously. He says, we'll say like, what do you want? You know, 1 page of text. Now, you know, we still have to see our big old hitbox when we're facing up over here. But we can reach and talk to the shopkeep now. Heck yeah, man. Okay, heck yeah. And it looks like it's updating, right? So like, he's gonna be walking. I can't collide with him until I'm actually colliding with him. And then when he walks out, he's missing it. So that's huge. That's good. That's all I wanted to do tonight. I do want to see, you know, this isn't, I don't like this because we want the consistent dialogue box. We want the consistent dialogue box size when we're outside of the tavern, and when we're in the tavern, then we need that higher height of a dialogue box. So I think, you know, we want to go back to our player, and I think we want to undo what we did with the dialogue box height. This is wrong. We fixed this, and we fixed this. So I think what we want to do is go back to our player class, and here, instead of the facing up, what did we change? Instead of the divide by 2, let's get it back to the normal, or instead of the non-divide by 2. Yeah, that looks more right for the normal bits, but yeah, can't reach him. So it's almost like we need like a little option, like say, you know, we would want to just, if the option were to modify the Y starting height by like 5 pixels, for example, does that give us enough height to actually talk to him? Let's see. It does, but only if I'm holding up, so maybe 5 pixels isn't quite good enough. Let's try 7. Okay. I mean, this is really cool. I think we just need to be able to handle a different dialogue box Y for our player if we transition into a certain scene where we might need a warped dialogue box Y. So I'm gonna yank this. I'm gonna reset it. Actually, yeah, I always forget that. Okay, so it's -7. Okay, so that's our normal stuff. So where do we go? And when we do a warp zone trigger, you know, where is the warp zone? How do we want to do this? Because like, part of me thinks it's like we can say, hey, if we're warping to map scene 1-1, go ahead and just change our our dialog box Y to be the appropriate size, and if we're changing to any other position, default it to the normal size. Okay, well, let's take a little look at our warp zone. Is warp zone a class we made? Yes. Okay. So all we're doing is a warp zone has an X, a Y, a player X, a player Y, and then a warp row and a warp column. So once we go and do, there is no updating in the warp zone class. All we're doing is defining a collides function. And it's like, this is the hitbox for the warp zone. So once we collide with the warp zone collider, then the warp zone collides becomes true. Now, where do we do the warp zones? We have a table of warp zones, so let's see where we'd use them. And, okay. Warp zones. Yeah, we populate them here. That's not good enough. We need warp zones. Okay, that's where we insert them. This is where we collide detect. We say, hey, if there is a warp zone in the current map, let's go ahead and cycle through all of those warp zones. And if the warp zone collides, and the collides function is, let me just, crap. Where is our warp zone collider? Warp zone collides is checking against the global player. Okay. So that's why it doesn't take any parameters. It's just checking against the global player. So, wait, where are we? Okay. And then once we check through the warp zones, we're seeing if the dialog box... Oh, wait. Yo, wait. Did I just accidentally paste that? I did. I did accidentally paste that. Okay, good thing I didn't accidentally overwrite that. But the thing is, we do want to potentially do this somewhere around here, where we say if our warp zone object collides with our global player and we're not already warping, let's test this and just say we're gonna change our player's dialog box Y to be that higher position. This doesn't fix changing it back to the smaller. So like, look, the red box is like right in front of us when we're facing up. Now once we warp, I'm gonna see if it's, well, play state 263 right here. Our player does not have a dialog box. Oh, self. Okay, let's try that. So the text box collider is like right above us, yet when we warp, it doesn't seem to have moved. We're looking to gain that extra height, so it's like once we become warping, we want to change the player's dialog box Y. I'm pretty sure that's right. Let's see, because in our player class, oh, it's in our entity class. But our player is an entity type, so this should be... Come on. God damn it, where is it? Maybe it's not. Maybe it is in our player. It is in our player. But look, the player has the dialog box Y, and this is what we changed to fix it. Oh, if we're facing up, we change it. I mean, it should change it regardless, but then... Okay, so I think it's just getting overwritten, because I think we do assign it the correct value, but then when we go to update us, we say this. If we're facing up, we set it to here. So it's almost like we might need an option here to not just willy-nilly set this, but only set this if what? Dialog box disjointed hitbox, like extend upwards. Extend dialog box upwards. So if we have this parameter of extend dialog box upwards, then we're going to assign the correct value of -7 so that we can shift it upwards. So let's just maybe define this extended dialog box upwards and see if it acts right. So extend dialog box upwards gets true, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so look, extended dialog box upwards is above us, and if this were not true, then it's normal. So now we just need to trigger this to become true if we warp into, like, let's just say that we just do it if we warp period, and then we'll worry about checking if it's a I don't know if this is the right way to do it, right? Like, there is no right way, but we just need it to be able to work and be able to not, cause issues and us to hopefully reuse it. But look, dialog box right in front of us, and then we walk in here and see it's farther above us. So now we can actually talk to the shopkeep up here, even though our dialog box normally doesn't reach that far. So here's the issue. We walk back out. Now look, when we face up, it's still faced up. So it's like we need, and this works. This still works. It's just that it allows us to talk and read things from a space that we're normally not able to, like this. I can read the sign from like a whole tile size away, which is not right. So instead of just doing this, it's like we need to ask, if we're going to warp, we need to ask if the current warp zone, how do we do this? We would need to ask if, like, the current warp zone we're going to needs a extended upwards hitbox or not. If it needs it, go ahead, change that value to true. If it doesn't need it, change it to false. So we might just have a value, we would link our extended hitbox to certain scenes like the shop or the tavern. I don't know. It does work for now. We need to say that we need to come back to do make this revert depending on necessity or whatever. So it might include, maybe our warp zone takes in a parameter that says, does this need an extended hitbox? If so, go ahead and flip that boolean for our global player. So it might have something to do with that. It is just right before midnight, so I'm going to go ahead and commit. I'm glad we did get the thing fixed, which is good. It's just not fixed in the prettiest of ways. So tomorrow we'll try to add that parameter to our warp zone to say, hey, do we need any special hitbox adjustment so that we can interact with this current scene as our player? If so, change it. If not, default it back so that we can switch it back once we come out of the tavern back to the normal world. We need the normal non-disjointed hitbox again. So say added disjointed hitbox for upwards dialogue collision detection in tavern. Okay. And we'll call it a night. I'm glad we fixed it. I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully feeling better because I just had so much work and I had a whole shoot this weekend, so you know, a late stream, a shorter stream, but let's see. We've got Yo, Katron, hey, you have a good night too, man. Hope you're doing well. Hope your job opportunity gets back to you. And good news. Here, we'll raid out to you know what, let's raid out to Brightside. He's a super chill dude. We haven't raided him in a while. He's always doing some crazy 3D stuff. He's always very nice to me, so yeah, have a good night. Thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow.